Good morning. Good morning. It looks like indeed. Hope you all got some rest. Work is continuing today. Yesterday we were supposed to finish this, but so fun little story. I have something called supraventricular tachycardia, which basically I think a nurse one time phrased it, and I loved her phrasing. Is I've got heart go fast syndrome. So every so often it happens very rarely, but sometimes I just need to take it extra easy. And that was yesterday. So hopefully that won't interrupt us again, but we're back. Let's get this hand attached to the body, and then we're going to start making the spirit, and that's the plan for today. So I think this was pretty close to done. I think we need to go through and do a chunk more. Whatchamacallit, sculpting. I think we need to sculpt this a bit more, but I think that was all we really needed to finish there. Let me... There's also one thing I want to do a quick experiment for. So this hand and the way it's attached currently should be good to go. I'm debating about if I want to try anything to make it make the pad of the hand here, or of where the thumb connects to the hand. And I don't think I do. I think I kind of want it to be like it is. So what we'll do is... Oh, and you know what? Let me get my tablet ready preemptively here so that I'm not fiddle-faddling around. Ugh, dusty. Alright. Boom, ba-dum, boom. Dude, I'm so glad I remembered OC Remix, which is a place that does a lot of like just custom remixes of classic video game music, and all of their stuff is free to use, so no crazy copyright stuff going on. It's really good too. So I'm glad I found that again, and we can actually have music on the channel because it has been quiet without. And I think also maybe towards the end of the week, which I realize we are towards the end of the week, maybe tomorrow, we're gonna do some love and make this a little bit nicer here. So just that the stream in general is a little bit nicer to look at. All right, so let's get some sculpting in here. Let me turn on wireframe. I always feel, even if you're sculpting at very high polygons, you should always have sculpting on for the most part whenever you're sculpting, so you can actually see what the vertices are doing. And we need to make this into a little bit more of a good-looking hand here. And I think I want to see, I actually at some point recently, fun just note for any new Blender users out there, is there are a couple things that I would recommend you change in settings. One of them is is it key map? Always click on tab for pie menu, just random Blender knowledge for you, always click on tab for pie menu. And the other one is specifically under also key map. There should be, if you typed in sculpt, or maybe brush is the one that I'm looking for. Here in sculpting, there's the brush settings. Brush select, and specifically C here defaults to clay. Which one's that one? The fourth one? And I would always change it to clay strips, which it looks like I've already done. What is Shift C? Shift C is draw sharp for crease. And it's weird that I have those already. Did I not? Am I misunderstanding? Oh, I guess the settings. I thought I had reset my settings at one point, but it doesn't look like I did. Okay. All right, let's start adding in just a little bit of volume, a little bit of mass, and sort of shifting all of this around a little bit to more resemble what a hand is supposed to look like. Just using a combination of a bunch of various tools. Inflate, of course, is a really, really, really good one. Crease is pretty good. Using low weights on all of these because it is a low poly model. Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. I still want to say good morning, but it is evening for me, and I assume most of you here in the U.S. as well. I actually have a surprising number of people who watch in Germany, which I was not, like, why Germany, I have no idea. That was not one I was expecting, but shout out to all you guys. Hands are weird, man. I have to, like, look and sort of see here how stuff ought look. And I think, so also, last time I was trying to use the pose tool. This was a few days ago. I was trying to use the pose tool and it wasn't working with the masks, which was very weird. It's supposed to work with the masks. Found out it's face sets is the reason for it, is it works with face sets, and I had forgotten that. So we might do some of that to, like, bring the thumb down, because it kind of exists at, like, a strange 45-degree angle. So we might bring that in here as well. Good evening. Hope everyone's doing okay there. Is this... It is scrape. Yeah, cool. All my shortcuts are doing exactly what they need to be doing. Do-do-do... A little bit extreme. Yeah. Let's see if we can't adjust this thumb bit here just a tinge. All right. So let's make some face sets. Paint this in. Mostly I just want to paint the one here. And we'll go, nope. Perfect all the way around. How's everyone doing this evening? Thank you for tuning in, of course, of course. So, okay, so with face sets, because again, I didn't have this working last time. Real quick, face sets are super cool. They're basically a way of sectioning off portions of your mesh. So here, each time I draw, it'll give me like a new color. And I can pull colors into and through each other, so I can like overwrite colors. So here I've got just the thumb sectioned out with one face set, which is this weird little looking tie-dye thing down here. And basically what that lets me do is now I can use the pose tool, which is the sort of jointed icon. And in there, it'll say Rotation Origins Face Sets. And you can change that to Topology Face Sets and a couple other things. So with this now, as I can have it go to where the outermost edge, I believe, or do I even need to set it? It doesn't look like I do. It's still affecting more than I wanted it to. Is that because of the size of my... It's still affecting more than I wanted to. I don't remember why. It's been too long since I've used this this tool. So I thought I was going to be able to be like, yeah, it works like this, and that does not seem to be the case. So let's see here. Thumb does... This is a really thick thumb. I'll just need to sculpt it a little bit. Like that, right? I guess technically speaking, the thumb is a lot straighter. Can I... What if I take out a number of these guys here? And then we'll just straighten this guy a little bit here so he's more... Kinda. Here, let me go into edit mode for a minute because this is getting a little wonky, a little weird. Dun, 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 dun. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's go back in sculpting mode. Always worth remembering, you don't always have to do everything in one mode. You can, and in this program, you probably should switch between things every so often. This, in general, needs to come up. This is a little bit silly in here. That's fine. That's fine. That can come up. Smooth all that out just a little bit. And smooth a chunk of this out as well. Starting to get more hand-like. I think there's a chunk of the fingers. So fingers, funnily enough, aren't like they're straight-ish, but they're not perfectly straight, which you can see just looking at your own hand. Like I've got like spaces here, even when I've got my fingers together. So there is like a slight curve there. Maybe not that much of a curve though. Pull that guy out, and then I think there's a few parts that are maybe a bit blocky, but otherwise this is doing pretty good. We can take that down just a little bit. Appreciate you, Cop Sirens. Pull this out. Speaking of Cop Sirens, I actually, over the course of the holidays here, repurchased the definitive edition of Grand Theft Auto Vice City and San Andreas. Welcome, Stray. How you doing there? But yeah, repurchased Vice City and San Andreas and have been going through those games again. And that is a flashback and a half, man. I have not played those games in a long time. And they're still good. San Andreas is a really solid game. Like, it's been a while, but damn. And then what I'm going to do is sort of pull up these fingers just a little bit more so they're in line, because it's the underneath that has the most sort of dip and curve to it. The top of each of your fingers is actually quite flat and nice in that regard. Whoops. There we go. And from a distance, not like an extreme distance, but from just a little bit, I think that looks pretty decent for a hand. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's like it's enough. Maybe I'll take just a few bits of that down, just a little bit. But otherwise, I think our hand is doing just fine. Oh, and then let me do just a little bit more rearranging on the thumb because I mucked around with it just a little bit. Alrighty. Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll call that done for the hand, and we'll just move right on to the ghost. But how's it going, Stray? What's up? Anything fun or new going on in the world of you? Um, Set this up here for the time being. This guy back on. So the way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna come cursor world origin selection to cursor, and I'm going to duplicate the hands for just a moment, and then mesh those with the body here. So now we have our body and our two hands. And then we can take these and go ahead and just attach them nice and simple like. Fun fact, just talking about, hey, how's it going? I appreciate everyone stopping by. All the familiar faces. That's fair. Fair. Similar, it's funny that you're watching the creation of a hand. I'm doing something very similar over on my end. That's what I got going on at the moment. Uh, Fun fact before I actually do this is that your hand should just about cover your face. That's like the proportion of a hand. Because we were talking a lot about proportions the other day and just like how big various things should be. And if they get too out of line, then that's the like biggest sign that something has gone weird and awry. Cool. Clipping is turned off. So let's see how big our hand is. And that's pretty good. It could actually stand to be a little bit bigger. I don't mind characters with big hands. Big hands, big heads, and big feet are fun character things I like. Okay, cool. Get this back to where it belongs. So yeah. Then we'll just attach those like such, and then we'll move on to making our little ghost character. I had also mentioned just some of the quibbles about rigging. Oh, that thumb is huge. That's a freakishly large thumb. That's fine. It's fine. No one will pay attention, but we'll all know. Uh, do, 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 do. Trying to think if there's anything else. No, that works. That's fine. It's like a wide thumb. It's a very wide thumb. Okay. This guy, those go together like such. Oop. Boom, boom, boom. Just stitching it together. I've always enjoyed it. Kind of reminds me of like making a doll or something like that. I appreciate. There's a lot you could do to make it into like a better hand than that. Like just toning down the size of that thumb. It's bothering me. I'm sorry. That was another thing too. Is I really enjoyed. I got to see the Dungeons and Dragons, the recent Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves, and I really like of just several parts of it that are like I feel really good. One of them in particular was the bard at the beginning of the thing. He's telling his backstory. And he's got a line where he just says it's really hard to relive all of this. Oh, yeah, and I'm sorry. He's like in front of a judge and he's like being tried for crimes, and there's a whole setup going on. He says, "Oh yeah, it's really hard to talk about all of this." without that one judge member we're waiting on. Is he going to be here soon? And I feel like that's a fantastic transition. And that was related to something I said just 10 seconds ago, and I don't even remember what it was. So, you know, that's how we do. So here we've got our humanoid character. And we can actually take a look at some of its final geometry. I know I showed this off the other day. Actually, let me go in and actually highlight it as to why we did much better this time. At first, it was like not doing so good, but now we're just doing better. I agree. Talking about that, there's a sort of style of character that has kind of like big forearms, big hands, big feet, and then like you know what? Here, let me. I've shown you guys into my library a couple times. Let me see if there's a book I can find real quick. Um, boy, it should be. Oh, it is up here. I think it's called like the Dusted Goose or something like that. Drunk goose, or I know there's a goose involved. What did I say? Dusted goose? It's yeast. And then of course you can't see anything. It's Ye Sand Goose. This was the. I don't know if it'll appear on stream very well there, but this was the art book for Fable 2, which was a fascinating game for a lot of reasons. Um, is this the art book or is this the guide? Oh shoot! This looks like a guide. Well, that's unfortunate. Somewhere I have the uh, art book as well. But I was playing also the Crash Bandicoot. It's About Time a while ago. And I was realizing as I was playing through the Crash Bandicoot game again that like all of my sensibilities for animation probably come from that being one of the first games I ever played. Like Crash Bandicoot is like a heavy, heavy, heavy influence for my perception of what video game animation should look like. And I think Fable is probably a really, really, really good description of what I feel character design should look like. And this in particular is not quite the spindly character I was looking for, but I can show you a picture in just a moment here of what a character might look like in this game. And just, I think a lot of the character design and proportions in the Fable series are things I enjoy. Yeah, this is not the art book, so I'll just show you this image here. But I think this is like Jonathan. It was so good. I love it. So I don't know if you can see him. Oh, it's cutting him out so nice, actually. Go, good job. What you call it? Green screen cutout effect. But yeah, I think this is like great character design. I feel like all characters should be extreme, crazy, weirdly proportioned. I love that stuff. Jonathan, it made me laugh. Anyway, our character is not particularly um, wide or crazy in any particular way, but I do enjoy that, and who knows? Maybe it'll be a final style we aspire towards. Anyway, uh, topology for this guy and why we've done some really good and some really, really cool stuff. So first of all, this entire guy is that his total number of triangles is does this show more triangles if I do this? I don't actually know. No, okay, it only shows the triangles for this. So this guy has less than 2,000 triangles, which is pretty good. Um, oh, so and someone mentioned Rain World and the animation in Rain World. I'll talk about that in just a second. But topology for this guy. This is less than 2,000 triangles. That is fantastic. Obviously, it's not a particularly detailed character, but having for a full anatomical character, 2,000 is pretty darn good, pretty darn lean. We've got a lot of definition, and there's things we can do to add in extra definition. So this is like one of my fun favorite secrets is you can do things. I don't know if this will work here. I might need to add in let me add in a weighted normals. Turn on auto smooth in the object data. Where's your auto smooth button? Normals, auto smooth. Set from faces. Control E, clear sharp. So one of the things that we can do, for example, is and then this should be, yeah. So this is a fun thing you can do. So under the butt here, you essentially just mark edges as sharp, and that will keep the normals from blending smoothly between them. So you can actually add in a lot of definition in places by adding in like select bits of sharp edges throughout your model. And if I were going like really, really crazy with this, you could even do cheeky things such as marking sharp like the back of the calves and just a whole bunch of areas to really, really create muscle definition without actually adding in any extra geometry. In terms of some other stuff we have going on really, really well here is I'm quite pleased with how the arms and shoulders came out, is that we have one continuous loop that now goes literally around. There's a couple triangles that are blocking this, so you can't quite see the whole thing here. But if I were to try and highlight a number of these bits, you can see we've actually got a loop that goes around the entire length of the arm, including the hand, that is consistent the whole way through. And then the next loop down from that does the exact same thing, but crosses across the body. So we're sectioning off the arm and the upper torso. And then all of that is sealed off with its own initial loop here, which is great. So that geometry can deform, and this will just be really, really great for deformations as we go along, and that's super freaking cool. Quite pleased with the legs and hips as well, as we have two, two loops which run the length around our body, going in sort of whatever axis you want to call this. Like I would call this an x-axis loop, but I don't know if that's what you'd want to say, like, because you could also call it a y. I don't know. The point is that we've got this loop going along, goes the whole way around, and then these continue along as well. If I can kind of highlight where it is they're going, because they do have a couple interruptions with different edge loops and triangles along the way. Overall, the point is that this is just really, really, really clean topology. I just clicked that, and I'm quite concerned about that. Let me rephrase that. I'm not quite concerned about that. This is a loop I was not in control of. This is a loop that I was not intending. It's going in wild directions. It's doing all sorts of stuff that I'm not intending for it to do. And you want your model to have as few of these as possible. But especially as you make more complex models, it's somewhat inevitable. And considering how clean everything is, even despite this, I'm not too worried about this. So yeah, this is a really, really solid low poly humanoid model. So go us. And then someone mentioned that the best animation in any game ever is in Rain World. And I would actually disagree with you in that the best animation of that kind is in a different game called Overgrowth. So both Rain World and Overgrowth use procedural animation, which is a technical level beyond mere mortals that I don't understand how you even begin a process like that. But procedural animation is bonkers, and I highly encourage you to watch. You know what? Actually, let me see if I can find. I have somewhere in here my map of San Andreas that I was looking at. Let me actually see if I can find real quick, because I would love to share it with you guys. There was a GDC talk on Overgrowth's procedural animation, and it's great. Oh yeah, here it is. Perfect. Oh, that was so easy. I love when it's easy, because it's never easy. Yeah, I would love to share this talk with you guys. This is fantastic. So if you want to know anything about procedural animation and like the thought process behind it and how far you can push it, this is the thing to look at. This is amazing. Um, but yeah, and the other game that also in that like time frame that had excellent animation, like really really high quality stuff, was Spyro the Dragon. Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot. Back when, sorry, I get on rants sometimes. You know what's another game that also had, or another series, I guess, that had really really good animation was the Monster Hunter series. Early Monster Hunter was really focused on character animation. So it's kind of, if you imagine like acting, right? That there's a huge thing where movie actors tend to not be good at plays and like stages, and vice versa. There's definitely crossover. I don't mean to say that you can only be one kind of actor, but in general, when you are a film actor, you'll have like cameras really close up in your face, and they're like really really concerned with your facial expressions and all these little tiny nuance things, and so you focus on that when you are a film actor. But when you're a stage actor, it's literally the opposite end of the spectrum. No one, even in the front row, is going to be able to see your facial expressions, right? Or even hear the very slight changes in the tone of your voice. So as a stage actor, you do everything big and loud, and you have elaborate gestures. And it's not that one is better than the other. It's not that it's just that they're different and they focus on different things. And early Monster Hunter games, because we didn't have like complex facial animation, like a lot of characters were just flat textures slapped on characters' faces, like their faces were as detailed as this. uh, they focused a lot on full body character animation, right? And that's where you get some of those things of what you call it. Monster Hunter was famous for a long time because every time you drink a potion, your character would stop moving completely, go through this like elaborate drinking animation, and then strike a pose to show that they had healed, right? And that's all full body character stuff. And Monster Hunter did that so well with just like eating and sleeping and being tired and like lugging these huge weapons around. So that was another one that had really, really good animation. Sorry for the rant. Let's get back to modeling. Yeah, all right. This will be our guy. He's doing just fine. We'll save because we always want to save so that we don't screw ourselves over. And then Ghost. We're gonna make the spirit now. Um, there was a. I'm debating about doing, and if any of you in the chat have any input one way or the other, I'm debating about doing a kind of like tadpole looking thing where you've got basically a ball like form on the top. No, I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do. I said I didn't know what I was gonna do, and that was a lie. I know what I'm gonna do. I just don't know how I'm gonna do it, is the problem. Um, so I know that there are a number of vertex patterns I'll need in order to create kind of the shape that I want to make. And this is something that I do a lot, is I'll just lay them out like this. So, and actually, you know what, here, let me take a step back. As a fun, I encourage anyone who's learning about poly modeling to do this, because this is great. This is like, I just encourage you to not start with base shapes kind of as much as possible, because there's so frequently that a base shape isn't going to give you what you need. I'm not saying you shouldn't use base shapes, but like be careful with them, because they can lead you down like topology and modeling rabbit holes and loopholes that you don't want to go down, I promise. So what I'll do frequently is I will add in an object. It does not matter what the object is. In this case, I'll add in good old Suzanne. And then I'll enter edit mode for Suzanne, and I'll just immediately press delete and get rid of all vertices. So now I have an object up here that is essentially an empty object. It has no vertices, no vertex data, there's no object. And what I'll do is I'll quick rename all this. We'll do mesh spirit 00, and we'll call this data underscore spirit 00. And what you can do is you can control click just somewhere, control right click to place a single vertex, which we do here, and then just start laying out topology that you know you have to have from there. Like just like, and this goes back to that shape I showed. So in the last stream, go check it out. I talked about a cube with a single face that has been extruded, and why you can learn so much from that cube. So I know that I need to have like the dome, that literally the headpiece of my ghost, and that needs to be a rounded thing. So the way I'm going to make that using good topology is I need 4 3-poles going in a circle, and I'll show you, and we'll just make that real quick. So I'm going to take this single vertex here, I'm going to pull it down and over like this, turn that into a face, turn that into a face, pull all of this out, turn that into a face, and this here is our 3-pole, right? So I've got 3 4-sided 4 quads, or I'm sorry, 3 quads, each with 4 sides and 4 points, all sharing this one of them, right? And this is how you round things off and essentially create loops. Yeah, a will-o-wisp is kind of what I'm thinking here. So with this shape, I'm going to need, what this is going to let me do is essentially start curving things, and I'm going to need 4 of them to create my initial circle here. So I'm going to pull this out just a bit, and I'm going to kind of rearrange some of these so that they are doing something kind of like this. So this is just one corner of a cube. That's all we've made so far, is just one corner of a cube. But with this, right, I can take this and I'm going to rotate it around just a little bit. And we'll do just a little bit more, just like such. So from a top view is I'm going to take this and I'm going to make another one, just duplicate it. We'll have this guy right over here, duplicate him right over here, and then duplicate him again one more time. So this is the shape we've got going on so far. And if I just bridge the gaps between all of these, we will have good topology. This shape is, this sort of corner of a cube is such an integral part of topology that if we use this as the starting point for anything that we're polymodeling, it will just have good topology as we go on, right? So let me finish filling these in real quick, and you should be able to see what I mean, right? And then here we've got this on top. Now, obviously, this is janky at the moment, and it's not good, right? But the question is like, well, okay, well, why start here and not with, if I needed to start with a sphere, why not start with a sphere, right? Because it's going to be this sort of like smooth dome-like shape. And the answer is this mess, right? This is what we want to kind of avoid, is this is not good topology. This is something that we want to avoid in our model because it's going to cause lighting artifacts. It's going to cause things to go wrong. So if I use this as my start point, which I very well could have, we would get rid of a lot of work in that we wouldn't have to worry about making this nice smooth shape. But at the same time, we're also starting with topology that is just hard to work with and is not good topology. So this is why I highly recommend, if you're interested in topology at all, which is arguably one of the 3D things I feel most comfortable with, learn patterns, learn formations of topology that are important. There's not a lot of them. And learn why they're important and where they're used. And then with that, you can create almost anything. So let's start by taking everything we have so far and adding a mirror modifier to it. Turning on clipping and clicking just like that. A do 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 do. Um, right. Cool. So this is the start of our character here, and I'm going to divide this in half as well, so that we have a nice. Or actually, no. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of that. I mean, I'm going to simplify this. I'm actually going to take just this whole line and move it all the way over. Distance. And then I'll take these two and merge them together. And I should... Nope. Merge it center. Merge it center. Merge it center. Perfect. So this is the start of our thing. Absolutely. You have a good night, Dustin. We'll see you next time. And thank you. I'm glad that the hand, I think, came out decently. I think the hand came out pretty well. So this is going to be the sort of top of our character's like head that we're working with here. I'm going to extrude this down one more time, so we've got kind of our ghost. And the thing that I was debating about earlier, that I was like, no, I know what I'm going to do, is we're going to take this and we're going to give him like two little arms, but it's going to look kind of like it's cloth. Like I'm going for the kind of ghost covered in a sheet ghost, you know? It'll make sense in a minute here. So I'm going to take this exact same shape because it's a shape that's so good for rounding things off, right? And I need to round off each little mitten I've got for this guy. I'm going to take this, I'm just going to use this exact same shape because it's what I need. So I'm going to pull this off, I'm going to pull this down, D scale X -1, grab that, pull that over, turn on clipping again, and then I'll merge all these back into one shape here. So this then comes out, and we'll grab this, and this comes down. And then we'll grab this guy, move him up a little bit, grab his little arm here. See the sort of ghost shape that we're going for, the like little, and then it'll have like a little wispy tail in the back. So now the new thing is now we need to connect these guys. And I'm sorry this is turning into a topology tutorial here, but you know, here we are. So I need to connect these guys, and there's a couple different ways that I can do that. And right now I'm debating about how I want to do so. I think the first thing to do is I'm going to close this off down here, because it will be closed off at some point, and I want to make sure that this topology is good down here. So we'll just do in like that. So this is good. Let me pull this down one more time as well. So scale Z0, Z2. So probably the easiest way, I think, is we'll do this. So gonna basically, anytime you can think in cubes and attaching at right angles, that doesn't necessarily mean that the thing is going to be modeled at a right angle, but it means that you can identify the topology you need to use, right? So somewhere in this area, 3 poles like this remove edge loops and round things off. 5 poles, which I'm going to have to use one here, 5 poles create edge loops and fan things out. It's how you create extensions of things. So if you want to make like a handle or a something coming out of another thing, you need to use 5 poles. So I'm going to need to have a 5 pole up here. By extension, I'm going to need to have some kind of 5-pole down here. And then probably on the back side of these, I will round off with triangles. And all of that will become clear in however long this takes me to do. So I'm going to grab all of this. I'm going to move it over just a little bit. I'm going to pull out one more blip here. And then I'm going to kind of just slap it and glue it onto the side of this other one. I don't need, and you know what, let me actually seal this off with faces here. So boom, boom, yep, just like that. Perfect. So this will be our arm. I'll grab this guy here. Oops. We'll scooch it back just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these faces. I'm going to get rid of this big face over here. And I can see a couple things that I'll need to have and maintain, which is an edge loop in this area to sort of keep up what I'm doing, to match this edge loop here, this one. And then that's continued over on this other side. And what we'll do is if I just start combining all of these vertices, merge at center, merge at center, we can take a look at the topology afterward and see the 5 poles that I was talking about. Boom, 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 boom. Perfect. So here, and assuming we did it correctly, which it does not look like we did, and I'll fix that in a moment. But here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I need to fix something here, because this is not how I want it to work. I never want to have any 6 poles. This one on the back here should be fine. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This down here would be 1, 2, 3, and then as this came in, you'd have 4 and 5 there. So that's good. This also would be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all the topology everywhere is good except for this. We need to do something about this. So what do I do about that is a great question. Probably I'll take this whole thing, unfortunately, and I'll just rip it apart, grab everything here, pull it out slightly, and I'll create faces between them. And that should fix everything. So here, let's do our count again and make sure everything. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Perfect. One down here would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 and 5. So, as a general note about this process here, right, is that we're keeping everything super, super duper low poly. And in doing so, that's giving us the ability to make sure that our poles and like large scale forms are exactly where they need to be, which is awesome. We can always add in detail later. So as for like the fix here, because I had a 6 pole that I really, really, really wanted to avoid, that happens whenever you have too many different loops converging around the same area. And generally, you can fix that by running a new edge loop through wherever your 6 pole would be, right? That's not always possible, but in this case, it is the solution that we need and wanted there. And it, like I say, it does work most of the time. So I'm going to pull some of these things back a little bit. And I might even add in just a whole other loop here like that. Let's fill in this bottom part. Oh, I didn't do this correctly. Get out of here. I have an extra vertex somewhere. Yep. Perfect. And then as all of this comes in, should do just like that, and then that seals off, and then this seals off. Perfect. The next thing I need is, and we could have made this from a cube. A cube would have been a fine place to start for this. Um, I just prefer doing it by hand, like point by point, because I know what I'm doing. The next thing we want is I want this thing to have a tail, like a little wispy tail. And this is an example of like where I need to be careful. Just talking about being in control of topology and understanding topology, right? Is I need to make sure that whatever I do only affects at best these faces here, these two faces. I cannot affect this face, and actually I lied. I can't even use this face. I can't use this face, and I can't use this face. Why? The answer is that if you notice, both of these faces are actually part of the same 5-pole, which is this guy right here. If I extrude using any of these faces that already are using a 5-pole, I will create 6, 7, 8, and just more poles here than I need or want. And actually, I don't think does anyone happen to know offhand why poles are like why an 8-pole is like just a horrible thing? Let me see if I can show this to you real quick, because I realize I'm like talking about, oh, you must never do this thing, and there's a good chance that a lot of people don't know why you must never do this thing. Let me add in this sphere, and this sphere has a really nasty pole. This is, I don't know what, 32 or whatever up here. Why is this bad? Why do we not like this? The answer is just if I hit shade smooth, there should be a point where I can rotate it where we'll see sort of the problem. I don't know if that's visible on stream. There's like a bump that you can only see. Basically, if you have too many faces sharing the same pole, it mucks with the lighting. Let me approach this from a different angle. There was a point where I was talking about how a lot of people will add in like extra faces here that don't really necessarily do a lot. Nothing will make your model break and look bad quite like long, thin faces. Long, thin faces are the devil when it comes to lighting. So like here, even just with the hand, right? You can see a discrepancy in the size of this face versus the size of like this face, which is probably one of the largest faces in the model as a whole. That's okay. What's not okay is when you have something like this, which is just long, thin faces, because it creates weird artifacts. And the same thing happens whenever you have poles that are out of control and have too many faces attached to them. Anyway, so for our ghost here, I can't use any of these faces because they're already attached to a 5-pole, and that would break the system. So I have to do it just using this. So our tail is basically going to pop right out of here. And then that's it. That's our tail. And this is our little ghosty ghost. So now that I know that this is the shape of our ghost... Oh, that's a fantastic question. Do you never model using subdivs starting from cubes? I don't, personally. Subdivision surface is one of those things where here, this is more of a rant than I wanted to go on, but I do love it. It's a fun topic. So let me tell you a little bit about a thing here. Um, you know what? And actually, I'm sorry. Before I do that, let me actually delete. I'm going to do something a little strange here, which is I'm going to actually have a wild hunchback in my ghost model here, so that the tail does a really extreme thing. Okay. So yeah, on the topic of subdivision surfaces and just things in general, um, one of the things you hear a lot is don't model with triangles. And there's a lot of conflicting information on that, and I've wanted to make a video about this for a while, so this is like the summary of it. But games don't use subdivision surface, right? Games only use triangles. There's no such thing as a quad in games, and there's a whole history behind that too. Like uh, Quake, Quake, I believe. Part of the thing that made early 3D graphics so tricky was the fact that you had to, for every triangle on the screen, you had to do Pythagorean's theorem, and computers were not powerful enough to handle that theorem for each triangle in rapid succession in order to create moving images. And I believe Obsidian, is Obsidian the Quake people? I don't remember, but Quake, the team behind that, created an algorithm that was much simpler than Pythagorean's theorem, that gave you a close approximation of Pythagorean's theorem, and that was what they used to make early 3D games. And so what happens is, in really early 3D games, if you move the camera very slowly, what happens is you actually see everything in the game shifting ever so slightly. And the reason why that's happening is because we're not actually calculating a triangle, we're calculating a close approximation of a triangle. So as those like close approximations change based on your camera angle, that's why everything's shifting, right? So games use triangles, right? But the other thing is that as early movies and cinema and everything were coming out, we found out that we liked smooth things. Smooth models were great. And the easiest way to smooth things was to use subdivision surface. That was the big thing that we used in order to make things look smooth. Um, the thing is that when you use subdivision surfaces, it's so computationally heavy and massive that you can't use it very well. Like it doesn't work. Sorry, I'm distracted just a little bit by the thing over here not working at all. 10 seconds. There we go. Yeah, so subdivision surfaces, it makes everything smooth, but that's way more computationally intensive than even Pythagorean's theorem, right? So there's no way you could use that for a real-time application. So thus became the divide between film and games, right? Is that games are always trying to go faster and faster and faster, and film is always trying to look better and better and better, right? So when we talk about modeling, early on we wanted to use quads, was the thinking, right? Because it, for two reasons. One is that quads divide into triangles neatly and consistently, and two is that quads can also be subdivided. They can be divided into quarters and sixteenths and so on and so forth, to create smoother models. So as long as you model in quads, everything will be fine. Don't use triangles because we don't know how triangles will subdivide, and so on and so forth. The important thing about modeling with quads, and with triangles for that matter, is that all of these rules and ground rules for why you use things were developed at a time where creating a teapot was a Herculean task, right? Creating a teapot was like the height of complexity for 3D. We've left that time. That time is now long, long, long behind us, right? So when you're modeling or learning to model in the modern age, right, where we can render untold numbers of triangles and polygons in real time with raycast lighting and countless other features that are just unthinkable for when many of these rules were laid out. The important thing is to understand what the shapes you're using and why you're using them do, right? If you have, I just spent a whole amount of time talking about 6 poles and 7 and poles above 5 and why they're the devil, right? If you have them on a completely flat surface, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, go crazy. It doesn't matter if the surface is completely flat. Where it matters is if the surface changes its normal in any way, because then that starts to have an influence on lighting. Why do we not use triangles? We don't use triangles because we don't know how they're going to behave when a character moves. If something moves, triangles get tricky. So if you're making a rock, then by all means use as many triangles as you want. The rock's never going to move. It's not going to animate at any point in theory, right? But if we understand how our rig is going to operate and how triangles are going to work, then also triangles are fine. Anything is fine as long as you understand what it does and why. And that's where we're at in the world of modeling today, is that if you know what it will affect and you understand why it will affect those things, you are free to do whatever it is you want with them, right? I have no problem modeling triangles. I have no problem making models with triangles. It's a great way to do countless things. You can cut off edge loops. You can create edge loops out of nothing. Using triangles is great. Using quads is great. But it's important to understand what they do and why, right? And if you can like lower poly counts, which is kind of a strange thing because that's becoming a thing we don't even need to worry about anymore, then yeah, like use triangles. Big things, if you are learning modeling and if you are learning topology, big things that you should avoid is make sure or try to make sure that your what would be referred to as your texel density, which are referred to as texture pixels, is consistent as much as possible. And what that means is just that your faces don't vary rapidly between massive faces and small faces. You want them to be consistent. Don't have long, thin polygons, because those will really jack up your lighting. And try to make sure that poles don't exist at points of articulation. Those are like the 3 biggest things that will actually mess up your model. The rest is just do what you need to do. Do what works. Sorry, that was a long rant. Let me catch up on chat here. Do I have any good recommendations that can help understand what and why for these triangles and for modeling in general? Unfortunately, kind of the answer is no. This is information that I've cobbled together over years of experience and trial and error and learning from different sources and looking up good models and bad models and stuff like that. This is a learned thing. Like I said, is that I've actually wanted to make a video on this for a really long time. Maybe I should. But I don't have a particularly good resource for you to follow to like learn this sort of thing. What I can say is that one of the most sort of important places to start, and let me see if I can actually pull this up real quick. Uh, is I'm right now all I'm looking for is just there's an image somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Um, I wonder if I can post this. Let me just pull this over. I just Googled this. This is not, I'm not affiliated with, I don't know. Ignore the number of tabs I have at the top of the screen. This is and if you Google just good topology, you'll see a lot of things out of context, which are just like, here's good topology for a foot was one of the first things that came up. And like this has no context, right? It's like, well, what this? I'm not modeling a strange bent thing. Why does it matter, right? But there's a lot to be learned here, right? And some of those things are like poles cause pinching. You don't want to have like you can see right here what long thin faces do. Let me see, and this was the thing I was looking for. Not all of these, but some of these in particular are like part of the problem with a number of these is that these are all trying to use quads, and none of them are using triangles. But just understanding, like, even just this one, the red one here, that's how to go from one edge loop to 3 edge loops. And it involves 2 3 poles with 1 shared face and 2 5 poles. And just paying attention and then learning how to use those things in your models will make your models way, way, way better than almost anyone else's. It's a little thing, but just memorizing some of these patterns and why people say, I should do it this way will make worlds of difference. And then outside of that, just wait for me to make a video on the topic. So let me get back to, and no need to apologize for getting me started on this. I love talking about this stuff. I love this stuff. I find it fascinating. I find it compelling. I find it really interesting. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back into sculpting mode with our little guy here and just make him the best boy that he can be. Fun note is if you ever go into you're working in shade flat here and you go to shade smooth and you see this, do not panic. Everything is fine. Everything is totally fine. Just select all your models, reset your faces, Shift N. You can also do Alt N to bring up your normals menu. It's just recalculate outside. The only reason that'll ever be happening is if your faces are weird, which again, like even just right here, sorry to keep hounding the topic. You see this weird band that's going around the arm? Long, thin faces. The way lighting is calculated for any individual face is based on the distance of that face between the lighting of the 2 faces on either side of it. So if you go from a big face to a small or thin one right next to each other, it will always cause problems because they're calculating their light based off of each other. So the more gradual the size or the transition of your faces, the better. So we're going to go in and we're going to smooth all this out is basically the plan. And here, we can also add in, I'm going to add in another edge loop here just to smooth things out a little bit. And that should be pretty good. Most of this should be pretty good. I think one other thing I'll do, which I can get away with, I believe, is I will take this And I'll double check to make sure I haven't screwed myself over here, but I should be able to take that and lift it up. Is this 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Good. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good. 4, 4. Perfect, perfect. Yes, that is a valid thing I can do there. And I think I actually want to do this in one more place, but I don't. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Yeah, because I can't use that one. Yeah. No, that works fine. That works fine. And let me grab these guys real quick. We'll make them teeny. Oops. We'll add in one more edge loop to make that less horrifyingly extreme. Okay, cool. So let's start some sculpting here. Sculpting a ghost. Remember, I'm the only channel that teaches you, as well as failing at whatever I'm trying to do at the moment. I think there's a remix for Cosmo Canyon going on at the moment. Yep. Dude, is anyone else in here excited for Final Fantasy Rebirth here? Oh, I'm excited for it. Oh, and you know what? I'm sorry. Also, that's part of the reason why I feel like I'm in the dark and don't know what I'm doing is I don't have my geometry turned on. Remember that thing I said you should always do? And then it promptly don't do? Alright. What we can do here, and I'll actually, is I can take down... Yeah, so like topology gets nutty sometimes. Just this in here, I add to count to make sure, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but these two faces are shared between another one that's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that same thing should be on the front wherever it was that was going on. Yeah, right here. That's a thing where like if you are using good topology to start with, right? And you're being very, very concise with your initial placements of things. You don't need to know that this is a place where having two 5 poles right next to each other that share sort of a central thing, you don't need to know that pattern because you know like a simpler pattern that took care of itself down the road. So that's part of the reason why I'm saying like the more you can like go through and learn simple patterns, it will help you so much. Is that like has everything to do with your own topology taking care of you as you move along without you having to like worry about it, which is just really valuable. How's it look? Is the ghost idea coming through? Does that read as a ghost? Anyone? Any input on like maybe we could bring the whole tail bit down quite a bit, right? I'll bring it like way down and make it wispy. But does that track? Does that read as a ghost? Oh, so appreciate you, Dustin. Someone brought up the idea of basically doing a sculpt first and then doing the retopology second, which is a tried and true workflow for a lot of things, right? And there's a lot of like really, really good reason why you would consider doing it that way. But there's also a lot of, ooh boy, there's also a lot of reasons why you don't necessarily need to do that for everything, right? If you are not going to have, so another thing is there's a lot of times there's like high resolution assets and low resolution assets, and we only consider the two. We only really talk about like, is this a high res asset? Is this a low res asset? Which I feel is like a major bummer, like that we only talk about the two. Like, it's high poly or low poly. There's no other kind of poly. It's a bit of a bummer because I think there's this wonderful place for mediate, like middle ground, middle poly amounts of things, right? And the example I give is like, let's say that you need to make a mug for a prop in a video game, right? You could go through and make a high poly sculpt of a mug, which would be redundant and deeply unnecessary, and then like bake it and do all this stuff and then retopologize it all to make a low res version of a mug, right? You could go through that whole process. But why spend the time to do that? That's like such an unnecessary thing to do. But also, you don't want to have like a gross four polygon like cuboid mug. You want it to look nice. So just poly model it well, unwrap it well, and then run with that. Like just run with the sort of like immediate detail mug that you made. And I always like to use that approach when and where I can. Which is kind of what I'm doing for both of these characters, right? Is that they're not high poly, they're not low poly. They're like just the middle ground sculpted satisfactory polygon count, which is I like to use. Do make the head a little bulbous here. I'm sorry, I tried to ask. I don't know that anyone answered. Does this read as a ghost? Are we tracking the ghost vibes here, or am I like off my rocker? I feel like it reads as a ghost. Here, I should look at it. Yeah, absolutely. Floating around as this thing would be dope. I don't even care what you guys think. It tracks as a ghost in my book. Yeah. And then this is another oh yeah, my chat might be scrolled off. I also like because my chat just appears through OBS, and I feel like there are massive discrepancies between what I'm seeing here and what is going on with you guys over on your end. So if there's ever something I missed, just I'll do it again. Fair. Yeah. Talking about having the tail, like it's kind of like a tripod. Didn't even see that. Um, Let's go ahead, pop right on over to shoop, boop, boop, boop. Oops. Come on. And then this we can have do like a through animation, we can have it do like a flippy, wiggly. That. We can have it do that. Which in that case, I actually kind of want to give him some junk in the trunk, which actually kind of works great now that I think about it, right? Because it's almost like he's got like his hips, you know? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And that yeah, almost like he was like kneeling. Like it would have been his legs if we didn't end up in this unfortunate situation. I like that a lot. Thank you, Dustin. Grab that, round it out a little bit, give him the booty. Oh, that's dumb and I love it. That's so good. I like that a lot. Unintentional, but glorious. But glorious. Ah. And then we'll sort of bring this out and then do these guys together. Yeah. Oh, we will definitely make the butt wiggle. The butt shall be wiggling. This down here, coincidentally, is kind of a so like just talking about topology and making sure that stuff works well and these sorts of things. Here, like let me go in. Let me go in. And I hate that it works this way. We'll add in the modifier. We'll do edit, weighted normal, do this, go in, do the thing, auto smooth, take everything. And then there should be come on. Alt N set from faces. And then clear sharp, which gets us to here. And then we can do certain very specific things, right? So I could take, for example, this, and this kind of down the center there. And I can move them a little bit, but specifically I can mark them as sharp. And now what we've got is like kind of a, let me turn off the wireframe. This is what I was talking about earlier about like creating creases in places, but without actually adding in geometry by using things such as mark sharp, right? So now we can create this clear, like cut in to the model. And if I actually take some of this, you know what I might do? No, because I added that in for a specific reason. I forgot why I forgot the reason that I had added that in. So here, I'm not going to use these. I'm going to take those and we will clear sharp, get rid of them. And then instead what I'll do is I'll kind of move them, move a lot of these vertices just out a bit. So I can move these guys over. And we'll make this into the seam there. Boom. And do that as mark sharp. Yeah. Just do a little bit of hand manipulation of things. Oh, also, as a demonstration, right? So a while ago, I was talking about how important normals are, right? So we call this mode that we're in, and I'll do the hand editing here in a moment because the ghost has gone by very, very quickly and very, very smoothly. And also, well, it'll be time to stop in about 30 minutes, so this is fine. This is fine. Um, but I was talking about how important it is for because the way each normal calculates its shading and the way it should look is based on the normals of the faces on either side of it. You can edit that. You can change all of these things. But down here on the underside, oh my goodness, of these sleeves, I have exactly the thing I said you should never have, right? This is a long, thin face. I did inflate it a little bit, but you can see it's got this very, very sharp highlight here, right? It's because realistically, this is just a flat face. This is like an infinitely flat face. So how does it know how smooth it should be? How does it know what the lighting is doing? Well, what it does is it looks at this face and it says, okay, it's definitely pointing, and I can actually even turn on the normals to show such a thing. Let's tone these down just a little bit. Is it looks at this face and it says, okay, it's pointing in that direction. And this face over here is pointing in the opposite direction. So what I need to do is, as a long, thin face, I need to essentially average those two. And what you get is this really, really sharp but smooth transition between the two, because that's how it's calculating right now. If I were to take this face and I go Alt-N and I set the normal from, how do I do this? I think I would just need to reset vector. I don't. It's not worth going into. But the point is that, like, I was talking about, like, there's certain things you need to avoid. However, even in this case, I can use a long, thin normal to do something that works for me, right? This is an instance where there's something that I said, do not use this thing, right? But because it does something specific, and because I know what that specific thing is, and because it is useful in this particular case, right, we can do that thing. And I can do it without needing to add in a whole bunch of extra geometry, because that extra geometry wouldn't be adding anything that I couldn't do by just knowing what's going on under the hood here, right? However, because I know what's going on under the hood, I can do things to make this better. Is I can make this flatter and I can make it more sort of coincide with what it is I need it to do, which is appear like a smooth, rounded surface. So I'm going to alter these so that they're very normalized and very even in how they circle around. And that should help sell. Like you see, like right in here, for example, there's some weird shifting going on with the shadows. I can move the vertices around in order to help with that. And coincidentally, I'll tell you another thing. Thanks so much, Maxwell. You have a good night, get some rest, and I'll see you in the morning, okay? But right here for this particular face, and I can move it over so I can actually point at it. Right here for this particular face, you can see there's a weird cut and a weird artifact going in the lighting there, right? This is so cool. This is what I love about this stuff, right? That particular artifact is happening because the way that face is solving, because even Blender, despite the fact that I can use n-gons in Blender, I could use 12-sided faces if I wanted to, it still calculates them the same way that games are calculated, which is with triangles, right? The angle of that discrepancy in the lighting is very specific, and it is very specific because if I were to delete that face, I'm going to delete that face, and replace it with this triangle and this other triangle, that's how it's solving. Is it's solving the quad as two triangles, and the discrepancy in the lighting is equal to this triangle. If I were to go in, delete that edge, and then solve the triangle going in the other direction, like this, I get a smoother face transition. Because these triangles are more conducive to the lighting that I need this area to be. Now, there's other ways I could do this, right? And by using triangles here, it creates different situations. So here I believe I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This just happens to be a 5 pole, but it could have been a 6 pole. But this is why experimentation, seeing what other people do and why other people do things, is important. Is you can find out things, and if you know how it works underneath, then you can do some really, really cool stuff. So like all of the stuff we've done with gradients and masks in order to create like brush strokes for our environment, that's all just because I know about things like normals, right? Um, it's an important thing to learn, and you can do some really cool stuff if you learn about them. So the two ways that I can fix this lighting situation is I can either divide it up into triangles, which would be really, really unnecessarily complicated. And I appreciate you, Dustin, because your question just popped up, which is exactly the thing I'm about to talk about. Is it said, could you fix this lighting discrepancy by adjusting the vertices? Or would I want to? And the answer is yes, I absolutely would want to, because while I could fix it with triangles and changing the way that the quad is being solved, that's the term for it, is just saying each quad, because it's divided into triangles, it's either divided into triangles this way or this way. There's only the two options, right? I would not want to go through personally by hand for every quad in my model every time and figure this out. That would just take too much time and too much energy to do. So the way I can fix it is by knowing that that's what it's doing, is I can even out the transition by just pulling this out like such and making it into a more even quad on all sides, like a more square shape, or a more, what's the, more equilateral quad, I think is what I wanted to say. Is that each of the sides and each of the angles is more consistent and equal, and by doing so it will even out that transition. You can still see a little bit there where like it cuts in, and let me actually put it back to a point where I can point. You can see here it still cuts in just a little bit, but it's way less severe than it was a moment ago, and that's just because I've moved the vertex around, and that's it. I like no topology changes, no texture changes. And this, coincidentally, as another note for you, this will shine through to your texture, right? So if you think, oh, I can use a normal map and I can change all of this, this will affect your normal map. This will affect this affects all your stuff. This affects your shit. But you can mitigate and improve just the basics of all of your stuff dramatically by paying attention to things like this. So that might be as well, which another point here is that a thing, and I can add this in and show you real quick, is here I'm going to pop over to, and I think I talked about this at one point previously when we were making the leaves. So here I've got a plane, right? This is a flat plane. This is easy to solve. This all works great. Where issues come up is when I take diagonal corners and go like this, right? This is still a quad, but now you can see that there's some stuff happening. Some stuff that maybe we don't want to happen, right? What if I wanted it to happen the other way, right? What if I wanted the connection, which is currently between these 2 points, to instead be the other way? There's actually a very specific quad in the human model that I was doing over here, that this is a quad. It's just a quad, right? But I divided it into two triangles, this very specific quad into two triangles, because I want it to be like, okay, no matter what program it's going into, I want to make sure that it bends this way. Otherwise, you'd have a weird, like, stringy bit between your, in your groin, which no one wants weird stringy bits in their groin. Stuff that should not be clipped. But yeah, all in all, just knowledge of this will improve so much of what you can do. It's great. Same thing here. I'm going to mark this as sharp. Mark sharp. So now we have a nice, neat little bin there in the back, right? And then the rest it should be fine. I don't know if I wanted to. I could kind of do that. The rest is just going to be sort of adjusting single vertices, right? So I am always a fan. I know a lot of people are not a fan of going in and adjusting things by hand. But when your vertices move in smooth lines that you've like made sure are smooth by hand, just your model will look nice. That's a good time. So like here, I've got this ring here, and I can go through and make sure that it is decidedly smoothed out. And in so doing, I will have like it's an unconscious thing your eye sees. And then back over here to this guy, I can take a look at him and I can see that there's like a slight twist going on, which I think is what you were asking. And by removing that slight twist, we have an even more smooth transition. So, and obviously, just because of how low poly this is, there will always be bits that are not ideal, right? And that is one of the concessions that you also need to understand is when you make things low poly, or with a limited number of polygons, there are concessions that need to be made, right? You can't have everything look great all of the time. So like right here, as just an example, I can't smooth this out. There's not, it's just not going to happen. It's not meant to be, and that's okay, right? It's underneath the model. It's in a place where it's not going to cause any problems. It's fine that it is that way. Here I can see a fun bit, right? This is exactly the thing that we were talking about, where this particular quad is solving in this direction. And I might just, in fact, I will, just for the sake of making it better here, is I'm going to delete that face. I'm going to turn this into two triangles, and I'm doing so just to make sure it solves the way I want it to, right? Every single time. And that does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That actually didn't mess anything up. That's great. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. But in this case, it's doing just fine. And I might want to do something down here to make this less sharp. So this is another example, like right here, right? This is dark. This is very dark. As if it was like curving back down and underneath the ghost, which I don't mind. I don't mind a lot, I don't think. But the question is, why is it doing that? It's like, well, it's trying to average between these two faces, which are at a very acute angle. So we're not getting a particularly sharp edge here. This would look very different if I were to take these two edges here and do mark sharp. Oh, and what mark sharp does, I should say, is I've been talking about how a face is smoothed or shaded based on the faces on either side of it. When you mark an edge as sharp, it basically says, okay, I want you to calculate your lighting, but ignore the face on the other side of that edge. That's all mark sharp does. That's all mark sharp does. It says, ignore shading on the other side of whatever edge you've marked sharp. So by doing this, the second I click this, we now see it comes flush and flat as the front of the face. Cool. This is just cool. This is cool stuff. The question is do I want it to be this way? Most of the time, you're going to be seeing this character like this, and that probably is how I should have it, right? Because most of the time the character is going to be seen like this, I probably should have it such that it looks like one sort of continuous drape down the front for the face. I can move that out just a little bit more. For the hands here, let's do a little bit. I like the idea of sort of bringing these in. We'll bring this out, and then we'll bring this way in. Not gonna lie, I'm really excited for the end of today's stream so I can go back and play more Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. That's a bit wild. Yeah, sort of create that shoulder illusion there, if you will. Boom. And I think a lot of that's looking pretty darn good. We've got our booty here, and I think our booty looks pretty good as well. I might... so this would be an example of just the statement about like subtle things that your brain recognizes that you don't necessarily see, right? Is this was over here, and lighting wise, it's fine, right? But I know that with the sort of like adaptation we're making here, this is kind of like supposed to be the outside of your thigh. This is like your quads, right? So by just bringing this over, and making sure that these shapes are kind of more in line with how you would have it for your like physical anatomy, we can increase and sell the illusion of what this stuff is, of what these vertices are actually supposed to be representing. So here I can bring that down, and I can even bring this out a little bit, which is just a really, really subtle little thing. But with where the light cuts off, it can create the illusion of like, oh yeah, and then it's got its legs that are fading into a tail. I understand. So, good stuff. Question was, when do I plan on animating these? And the answer is next time. Most likely. We'll need to do first like lay out all of the bones and the deformation bones and such. But then after that, it's like full steam ahead, I believe. I'm gonna kind of turn this into like a weird circle. And in so doing, turn it into like a weird circle like this, and then we'll just make it smaller, scooch it over, and we'll do something similar down here, so that we have our bit rounded off. You know, there's this is not great. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like what the topology is doing down here, and I don't want to spend the time to try and fix it. It's kind of a mess. We'll just leave it. Yeah, I don't like it. I didn't even fix the problem. I just rounded it out more. Ah, well, it's fine. It's fine. Do I have can I just smooth that a little bit and have it work out okay? Nope. Nope. No, I cannot. Uh, Also, just in terms of modeling, there's always a constant question of just like what's worth your time and what isn't, right? Like, is this worth your time to actually adjust and fix and make nice? That's another thing too. Like talking about that mug is oh, uh, sorry, and that's a good question. Let me answer that as well. We'll be done in about 15 minutes, by the way. Uh, Dustin asked the question of because it relates to something I wanted to talk about earlier. Dustin asked the question of how will I be rigging it? Will I be using like Rigify or doing it manually or something else? Someone asked the other day why do things this way? Why not like buy a model ahead of time or do something like that? I will be rigging it manually. I'm just gonna sit down with no bones like this, and I'm going to add bones one at a time until I make the thing that I want to make, and that's just what I'm gonna do. Why do it that way? Because it seems like kind of a raw deal, and I honestly don't suggest you do it that way. If you have a choice and you're working on something of your own time, I very strongly suggest you don't do that. I very strongly suggest you go in and you buy a model. However, there is something to be said for like understanding. And the nice part is that by doing everything on my own, I like know the limits of what I've made, and I also understand how it works. And I know it kind of better than anyone else as sort of a point, right? And so that's why I tend to do things the long way, is so that I can learn about them, so that I can know about them, right? It's true that I could go online and I could find a model of a ghost that's rigged and textured and all of that good stuff, and then we'd be done. I wouldn't have needed to spend any time on this. Just it's done. But I don't have the money to do that, which, to be honest, is like a bigger limiter than I'm going to admit to anyone. I'm poor. But two is I don't know. Maybe that model would have features that I never used that would be really useful because I didn't know, or like maybe it would be way more complex and it would be way more cost heavy than it. I know what this can do, and I will know how it is made, and I know all of its limits because I made it, right? And that's valuable. There is value in that. Maybe not necessarily as much as I would like to argue that there is, but it is good to be like, ah, yes, I know the limits, the absolute maximum capabilities of the thing I made because I made it. So as I rig this thing, I'm just gonna sit down with no bones and I'm gonna make bones. I think that's our ghost. I think we've got. Let me go ahead and boop up both these guys. Whoa, one of these is huge. Let me we'll do that real quick, and then let me do the same thing for this guy real quick. Let's make this guy just a little bit smaller. And we'll raise him up just a little bit as well. Let me Gamma. Okay. Grab him. Big ghost, right? And then our guy actually needs to be a little bit bigger. I will say though, on the topic of rigs, is that they will be very simple rigs. I'm not making controls. I'm not making. It's going to be like fairly bare bones. Yeah, There's our two initial characters. So at some point in the future, I will make characters like characters. Uh, these are so that you can run around, see what's going on, and we can get like the initial things going here. Um, which I actually had some good news, some financial good news recently, and so I can afford the Steam key, which is great. That was one of the major stopping points of everything. So I think we're done with our models. I think all we need to do from here is rig them and give them some simple animations and some simple stuff. And then we will be in a really, really, really good place. I can get Steam Key, get replication up and working, and start making the game elements. Which, if I go somewhere on my computer, is my list of like landmarks. Um, this like I had leading up to V 0.1, because right now we're on version like 0.03 or something like that. Leading up to version 0.1, which is the version that I want to be on when I have a thing on Steam that I can do things. This process of making these guys, which I did anticipate was going to go fairly smoothly, but it was like 4 of the 5 steps, right? It was a majority of the steps were just getting this done. So I just need to get it up on Steam, get that integrated, get a little bit more UI done for browsing for servers and stuff like that, and then get these guys in and sort of get the first vestiges of like hopping back and forth between them, collecting things, and having that working out. And then we're in a good place. 2 hours a day, every day. More than that, because I'm working when I'm not streaming. I'm trying to only stream for 2 hours, but yeah. Oh, and I will say also, because I haven't said this anywhere else, so here we are, is that it's streaming 2 hours a day, except for yesterday because I had a problem, but streaming 2 hours a day every evening during weekdays. So weekends I'll actually be trying to relax and take care of myself, which is not something I'm used to doing. So that's the plan. But yeah, these guys they came out. We're here. We'll get rigs going on, and then yeah. Oh no, I do pretend to be an artist. Uh, I pretend to be an artist. I pretend to be a programmer. I pretend to be a musician. I pretend to be a lot of things. All of this is pretend. This is all pretend. This is me pretending like I know what I'm doing. The only thing I feel like I'm not pretending, just on the topic of imposter syndrome and being hypercritical of oneself, the only thing where I feel like I'm not pretending is when we talk about design and interaction. Is if you say like I need something to be compelling, or something is too complex, or like this system feels clunky, or just interacting with this thing feels bad, I'm confident that I can make it feel better, whatever it is. Like it doesn't even have to be video games. If you came to me with a product, if you came to me with a forward facing brand, I I have no even hesitation in making those things more appealing and just working better. It's when that's my wheelhouse. That's where I feel confident. Not to reveal and spoil for you all that I'm flying by the seat of my pants. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up. Today's Thursday. Is today Thursday? Where's my Thursday? Yeah, today's Thursday. So tomorrow then I'll probably lay out all of the deformation bones, and then we'll take a break for the weekend. And then back on Monday is when we'll set up those deformation bones to do the stuff that we need them to do, which is creating the like rig part of it. And then, yeah, in theory, by the end of next week, animations are set. Animations are done, and we can put them in and have stuff happen, which is awesome. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah, thank you. I worked really hard on these textures. These are, I call them, I actually worked so hard on them, I gave the textures a name. I call these textures Steely Blue. I did make them from scratch. I made them in Substance Painter. But yeah, that's where we'll probably call it for today. Stygian Gray. No, what was that was Zoolander's look, wasn't it? The blue steel where he would do a smolder. But yeah, from Stygian Gray. That's so dark. And not gray. But thanks for popping in. We'll call it here. Yeah, you guys get some rest. Rest up. Take care of yourselves. If you need anything, oh, you know what? Let me go ahead and post another link to. Let me get the. Oh, that's flipped and reversed. I need to fix that. Oh, you know what we'll also do sometime soon on stream is we'll go through and make all this better. I've been putting that off for far too long, and I believe Nidarius or no, someone in my Discord, one of the adventurers, asked me to please make everything better, and I still haven't. Yeah, it was Nidarius. Nidarius, I will make everything pretty. I promise. I will make this pretty. Don't you worry. But link to the Discord, I will post that here in just a second. So if you need anything, please come in, say hello. You could ask me stuff anytime. I'm usually available if I'm not brooding in a corner somewhere. Where the heck is the invite button? There it is. Perfect. So this is a link to the Discord if anyone wants to come in. Thank you guys for joining in the stream today. And yeah, we'll get it squared away. And we'll rig these guys in the coming days and do some animations and make it good. So get some rest. I'll see you all in the morning. You guys have a good night, okay?